Your nightstand looks harmless. But for anyone over 60, these 4 bottles together could be silently stressing your heart. Melatonin, valerian root, magnesium glycinate, L-theanine. Millions of seniors take them every single night, convinced they are safe because they are natural. At least that is what everyone thought. Here is what 2025 research actually shows. Combined use of these 4 supplements can trigger dangerous drops in both heart rate and blood pressure in adults over 60. We are not talking about mild drowsiness. We are talking about cardiac events that land people in emergency rooms. Updated 2026 clinical guidelines backed by cardiologists at major institutions, including the American College of Cardiology, now flag this exact combination as a senior-specific risk. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements issued a formal advisory in 2024 urging older adults to reassess their supplement stacks immediately. By the end of this, you will know exactly what to take, when to take it, and what to never mix. The body you had at 35 is not the body you have at 65. That sounds obvious, but most people never stop to think about what that actually means when they reach for a supplement bottle at bedtime. They assume the rules are the same. They assume the dose is the same. They assume the risk is the same. It is not. Here is where the story really begins. Inside your liver and kidneys, enzymes work around the clock to break down and flush out every compound you consume. At 35, that system runs fast and clean. By 65, it has slowed by 30 to 50%. That is not an estimate. That is documented in peer-reviewed pharmacokinetic research going back decades. What this means in practice is that compounds do not flush out on schedule. They stack. They accumulate in the bloodstream, building to concentrations that a younger body would never allow. The pill you took at 10 o'clock is still circulating at 2 in the morning, still active, still doing something to your cardiovascular system while you sleep. And it gets more complicated. The heart muscle itself changes after 60. Cardiac tissue becomes measurably more sensitive to sedative compounds. The sinoatrial node, the tiny cluster of cells that sets your heart's rhythm, responds more dramatically to anything that slows the nervous system. A dose that produces mild relaxation in a 40-year-old can produce genuine cardiovascular suppression in a 70-year-old taking the same amount. Same pill, same night. Completely different physiological outcome. Then there is the polypharmacy problem. Most adults over 60 are already taking at least 1 prescription medication. Many are taking 3 or more. Beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, calcium channel blockers, anticoagulants. Each of these has its own interaction profile. Add 4 over-the-counter sleep supplements on top, and the interaction matrix becomes genuinely unpredictable. Not theoretical, not rare. Genuinely, clinically unpredictable. Dr. Robert Klein, a clinical cardiologist who has studied supplement-drug interactions in aging populations, put it plainly. He said, and this is a direct quote, "What's mildly calming at 35 can be cardiotoxic at 65 when combined." That word, cardiotoxic, is not hyperbole. It is a clinical term. It means the compound is capable of damaging cardiac function. And Dr. Klein was not talking about obscure pharmaceuticals. He was talking about the bottles sitting on your nightstand right now. So how did we get here? How did 4 supplements marketed as gentle, natural sleep aids become a cardiologist-level concern for an entire generation? That answer starts with the first bottle, the one almost everyone reaches for first. How does someone go from a simple desire for better sleep to an unknowing participant in a cardiovascular experiment? The answer begins in 1958, when American scientist Aaron Lerner first isolated melatonin from bovine pineal glands at Yale University. It was a quiet discovery then. Nobody predicted it would one day become the most purchased sleep supplement on Earth, with global sales exceeding $2 billion annually by 2024. Melatonin is not simply a sedative. That is the first and most important thing to understand. It is a hormone, a signaling molecule your brain produces naturally in response to darkness. When the sun goes down, your pineal gland releases melatonin into the bloodstream. Your core body temperature begins to drop. Your blood pressure follows. Your heart rate slows. Your body is preparing for sleep the way it has for hundreds of thousands of years. Melatonin is the conductor of that entire orchestra, and that is precisely where the danger begins. Because melatonin does not just act on the brain, it acts on the heart, directly. Cardiac tissue contains melatonin receptors, specifically MT1 and MT2 receptors, embedded in the muscle itself. When melatonin binds to these receptors, it slows the firing rate of the sinoatrial node. That is the heart's natural pacemaker. Slower firing means a slower heart rate. In a healthy 35-year-old, this is a gentle, barely perceptible effect. In a 70-year-old whose cardiac tissue is already more sensitive to sedative compounds, this effect is amplified significantly. The same signal, a much louder response. Here is the number that stops cardiologists cold. In adults over 60, even a single 1 milligram dose of melatonin can produce a blood pressure drop of 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury. That is not a rounding error. That is a clinically meaningful reduction. For context, many prescription antihypertensive medications are designed to produce drops of exactly that magnitude. Seniors are essentially taking an unprescribed blood pressure medication every time they reach for a melatonin tablet, and most of them have no idea. They think they are taking a sleep vitamin. They are not. Now consider what is actually on store shelves. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements, in its 2024 updated guidance, explicitly stated that seniors should use the lowest effective dose of melatonin, which they identified as 0.5 milligrams. Half a milligram. Walk into any pharmacy or big box retailer right now and try to find a 0.5 milligram tablet. You will struggle. The standard doses sold commercially are 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, and increasingly 12 milligrams. That means the average senior reaching for a melatonin supplement is taking 10 to 24 times the dose that clinical guidelines recommend. 10 to 24 times. And that was not even the part that got people angry. What got researchers and cardiologists genuinely alarmed was the cumulative effect, because melatonin is not cleared quickly in older adults. Remember that 30 to 50% reduction in liver and kidney clearance rates. Melatonin taken at 10 p.m. may still be circulating at meaningful concentrations at 3 a.m., at 6 a.m., and in some cases, well into the following morning. Night after night, the compound builds. The blood pressure suppression does not reset cleanly between doses. It compounds. Each night adds to the residue of the night before. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Pineal Research examined melatonin pharmacokinetics specifically in adults aged 65 and older. Researchers found that peak plasma concentrations in older subjects were on average 3.7 times higher than in younger adults given identical doses. The same pill, the same night, nearly 4 times the exposure. The authors flagged this as a significant concern for cardiovascular safety in aging populations, particularly when melatonin is used in combination with other compounds that affect heart rate or blood pressure. The 0.5 milligram advisory from the NIH, the cardiac receptor activity, the blood pressure drops of 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury, the 3.7 times plasma concentration spike in older adults. Each of these facts is alarming on its own. Taken together, they describe a supplement that millions of seniors are using in doses far beyond what their bodies can safely manage, night after night, without any clinical oversight. But melatonin is only the first bottle on that nightstand. The second one has a mechanism that most people have never heard of. A direct line into the brain's primary inhibitory system. A system that, when pushed too hard, does not just make you sleepy. It makes your heart forget its rhythm. That 3.7 times plasma concentration finding would come back to haunt seniors taking melatonin nightly. But that is getting ahead of the story. It is 9:47 in the evening. The bottle sits on the kitchen counter, right next to the water glass. The overhead light is still on. A glass of water sits half full beside it. It says natural on the label. It says herbal on the label. It says safe for daily use on the label. And for millions of adults over 60, that is all the reassurance they need. They twist off the cap, shake out 2 capsules, and swallow them without a second thought. Valerian root. Sold in nearly every pharmacy, every health food store, every big box retailer in the country. A supplement with a 2,000-year history. Used by the ancient Greeks, documented by Hippocrates himself, and today moving off shelves at a rate that would make pharmaceutical executives nervous. The American Botanical Council estimates that valerian is among the top 10 best-selling herbal supplements in the United States, and almost nobody taking it at night fully understands what it is doing inside their body. That is where the story gets complicated. Because valerian root is not simply a mild sedative, it is not chamomile tea, it is not lavender aromatherapy. Valerian's primary active compound, valerianic acid, targets the GABA receptor system. And if that phrase sounds familiar, it should. GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It is the system that tells your nervous system to slow down, stand down, power off. And it is the exact same system targeted by prescription benzodiazepines, drugs like Valium, drugs like Xanax, drugs that require a doctor's signature precisely because their effects on the nervous system are powerful, dose-dependent, and in certain populations, genuinely dangerous. Valerian activates GABA receptors. That is not a typo, by the way. A supplement you can buy without a prescription in any quantity at any age is binding to the same receptor pathway as controlled sedative medications. The mechanism is not identical. Valerianic acid works as a positive allosteric modulator, enhancing GABA's natural effects rather than mimicking them directly. But the downstream result is the same. The nervous system quiets, the brain slows, and critically, so does the cardiovascular system. Here is what happens when GABA activity increases. Heart rate drops, blood pressure falls. The body's sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for keeping your cardiovascular function running at the appropriate level, is suppressed. For a young, healthy adult with robust cardiac reserves, this is manageable. Unpleasant in excess, but manageable. For an adult over 60 with reduced cardiac flexibility, with arteries that have lost some of their elasticity, with a heart that is already working harder to maintain adequate output, this suppression is not neutral. It is a variable being introduced into a system that has very little room for additional variables. But valerian was not done yet, not even close. Because valerianic acid has a long half-life, research published in pharmacokinetic studies places the effective window of valerian's active compounds at 6 to 8 hours. 6 to 8 hours of active GABA modulation, 6 to 8 hours of cardiovascular suppression. And when you take valerian at 10 o'clock at night, that window extends well past 3 in the morning, well past 4. It runs directly through the period when the human body, by its own natural circadian design, reaches its lowest overnight blood pressure. The timing is not coincidental. It is a collision. 2 o'clock in the morning, the house is dark and completely still. The only sound is the faint hum of a refrigerator 2 rooms away. The body is asleep, and inside that sleeping body, 2 separate processes are pushing blood pressure in exactly the same direction at exactly the same time. The first is circadian, natural, unavoidable. The body's overnight blood pressure dip, called nocturnal dipping, is a normal physiological event. Blood pressure falls between 10 and 20% during sleep in healthy adults. It is part of cardiovascular recovery. It is supposed to happen. But in adults over 60, the regulatory mechanisms that govern this dip are less precise. The autonomic nervous system, the system that manages the balance between blood pressure lowering and blood pressure maintenance, becomes less responsive with age. The margins get thinner. The buffer shrinks. The second process is pharmacological. Valerianic acid taken 8 hours ago is still active, still binding to GABA receptors, still suppressing sympathetic nervous system output, still pushing blood pressure down in a body that is already at its overnight low. 2 forces, same direction, no counterweight. The overlap is not accidental. It is mathematical. It is the direct result of valerian's half-life intersecting with human sleep architecture. And for adults over 60, who already experience more pronounced overnight blood pressure drops, this intersection is not theoretical. It is happening every night they take this supplement. In the dark, in silence, without a single alarm going off. In 2024, the Journal of the American College of Cardiology flagged valerian specifically for cardiac caution in adults 60 and older. That is a cardiology journal, not a fringe publication, not a wellness blog. The Journal of the American College of Cardiology. The language in that flagging was careful, as scientific language always is, but the implication was clear. Valerian's GABA-mediated cardiovascular effects, combined with age-related autonomic changes, create a risk profile that the medical community can no longer ignore. If valerian had stopped here, this would be a very different story. If valerianic acid simply made you sleepy and then cleared your system by midnight, the conversation would be straightforward. But it does not clear by midnight. It does not clear by 2. And for seniors with any degree of kidney or liver impairment, which becomes increasingly common after 60, clearance is even slower. The half-life extends. The active window widens. The overnight overlap grows longer. Morning, 6:43 a.m. The alarm sounds, or it does not. The body wakes, or it struggles to. A hand reaches for the edge of the mattress. The feet touch the floor. The carpet is cool. And for a fraction of a second, the room tilts. For most people who have been taking valerian for years, the morning after feels unremarkable. A little groggy, perhaps. A little slow to rise. They attribute it to age, to not sleeping well enough, to needing another cup of coffee. They do not attribute it to a 6 to 8 hour window of GABA receptor modulation that ran directly through their cardiovascular system's most vulnerable overnight period. Why would they? The bottle said natural. The bottle said herbal. The bottle said safe, but the body keeps a different record. And that record is written in blood pressure readings, in heart rate variability data, in the subtle morning orthostatic changes that make standing up from bed feel, some days, just a little more precarious than it used to. A little more dizzy, a little more uncertain, a little more like something is not quite right, even if nobody can name what it is. The cardiologists who reviewed valerian's pharmacology for the 2024 Journal of the American College of Cardiology report were not alarmed by valerian in isolation. They were alarmed by valerian in context. In context of age, in context of other supplements, in context of a cardiovascular system that has already been operating under the additional pressure of decades of use, of medications, of the natural changes that come with growing older. The GABA pathway, when pushed too hard overnight, does not simply make you sleepy. The cardiovascular consequences are real, they are measurable, and in a subset of seniors, they are significant enough to warrant serious medical attention. Valerian had entered the system quietly, naturally, without a prescription, without a pharmacist consultation, without a single warning label that said anything about GABA receptors or nocturnal blood pressure or cardiac caution for adults over 60. Everything valerian had built was about to work against the people taking it. It is not exotic. It is not controversial. It is not even particularly interesting at first glance. Magnesium glycinate sits in a white bottle. The label uses words like calm and recovery and essential mineral, and it is an essential mineral. That part is true. Magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the human body. It is foundational. It is necessary. And in the American diet, genuine magnesium deficiency is common enough that supplementation is frequently recommended by physicians. So it seems almost absurd to include it in a list of supplements that carry cardiac risk for seniors. Almost absurd. Almost. Because what the wellness industry does not lead with, what the clean white label does not explain, is that magnesium is not simply a nutrient. In the cardiovascular system, magnesium is an active regulator. It governs calcium channels in the heart muscle. It controls the electrical firing sequence of each heartbeat. It is directly involved in what cardiologists call the QT interval, the portion of the ECG waveform that represents the time it takes the heart's ventricles to electrically reset between beats. And when magnesium levels are off, too high, too low, or fluctuating, that interval changes. And when that interval changes, the risk of arrhythmia rises. This is not a fringe concern. This is cardiac electrophysiology. This is the reason magnesium is used in emergency medicine intravenously in controlled doses by trained clinicians to treat certain dangerous arrhythmias. The same mechanism that makes it therapeutically powerful in a hospital setting makes it physiologically significant in a supplement bottle on a nightstand. Here is the detail that changes everything about magnesium supplementation in adults over 60. The body's primary mechanism for managing excess magnesium is renal excretion. When magnesium levels rise above what the body needs, healthy kidneys filter the excess and eliminate it. Clean, efficient, self-regulating. That is how it is supposed to work. But kidney function declines with age. This is not a disease. This is not a failure. It is a documented physiological reality. The National Kidney Foundation estimates that kidney function decreases at a rate of approximately 1% per year after the age of 40. By 60, the average adult has lost somewhere between 15 and 20% of peak renal function. By 70, that number is higher. And for adults with hypertension, diabetes, or a history of cardiovascular disease, conditions that become dramatically more common after 60, the decline is often steeper. What this means in practical terms is that a 65-year-old taking magnesium glycinate every night is not excreting excess magnesium at the same rate a 35-year-old would. The mineral accumulates, slowly perhaps, imperceptibly, certainly. But the trend is directional. Levels rise, and as magnesium levels rise in the bloodstream, the effects on the cardiovascular system intensify. Bradycardia, abnormally slow heart rate, hypotension, abnormally low blood pressure. These are the clinical presentations of magnesium excess. Not toxicity, not the acute poisoning you might associate with a dramatic overdose, just a slow, quiet, accumulating suppression of the heart's electrical activity. A heart that beats a few times per minute slower than it should. Blood pressure that sits a few points lower than it ought to. Changes subtle enough to go unnoticed in the daytime. Changes significant enough to matter at 3 in the morning, when the body is already at its overnight cardiovascular low, when valerian is still active, when melatonin is still circulating. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything. Magnesium glycinate is not just any form of magnesium. It is specifically the glycinate form, chosen because it is highly bioavailable. It absorbs faster. It absorbs more completely. The same qualities that make it the preferred form for therapeutic use are the qualities that make accumulation more likely, more rapid, and more pronounced in a body that cannot efficiently clear the excess. The supplement industry markets this as a feature. For seniors with reduced renal clearance, it functions more like a liability. The QT interval does not announce itself. There is no symptom, no warning, no moment where a person lying in bed at 2 in the morning is aware that the electrical reset cycle of their heart's ventricles has shifted. It happens silently, invisibly, measurable only on an electrocardiogram that, in most cases, nobody is running on a sleeping senior who takes a magnesium supplement every night. But the risk is documented. Magnesium imbalance, specifically the kind of slow, accumulating imbalance that can occur in seniors with reduced renal clearance taking bioavailable magnesium nightly, directly affects the QT interval. And QT interval prolongation is one of the most well-established risk factors for serious cardiac arrhythmia, including the kind that does not announce itself. Including the kind that, in a sleeping person, can be mistaken for something else entirely. The cardiologists and researchers who study this are not arguing that magnesium is dangerous. They are arguing that context is everything, that dose matters, that kidney function matters, that age matters, that the difference between therapeutic and harmful is not always as wide as the supplement industry implies. A senior with subclinical kidney impairment they may not even know they have because it often produces no symptoms until it is advanced, taking magnesium glycinate nightly is quietly shifting their cardiac electrical profile. Night after night, week after week, month after month, the accumulation is gradual, the risk is cumulative, and the monitoring that would catch it before it matters is, in most cases, simply not happening. Magnesium had entered the system the same way valerian had. Quietly, with excellent intentions, with genuine, legitimate health benefits that made it easy to overlook the risks. It was recommended by nutritionists, praised in wellness publications, endorsed by sleep coaches and functional medicine practitioners across the country, and it was doing something to the heart that most of the people taking it did not know about. 3 compounds were now active simultaneously in the bloodstream of a sleeping senior. Melatonin suppressing blood pressure through cardiac MT1 and MT2 receptors. Valerianic acid modulating GABA pathways and pulling sympathetic tone downward. Magnesium accumulating in the bloodstream and altering the electrical reset cycle of the heart, each one in isolation carrying its own risk profile. Together, they were not simply adding, they were multiplying. The cardiovascular system does not process these compounds in separate lanes. It processes them all at once, in the same blood, through the same heart, during the same vulnerable overnight window. And here is what makes this combination so difficult to detect. None of these 3 compounds triggers an obvious alarm. There is no racing pulse, no chest pain, no shortness of breath that jolts a person awake at midnight. The effects are suppressive, not stimulating. They push the cardiovascular system downward, quietly, incrementally, in a direction that feels, from the inside, like nothing at all, like sleep, like rest, like exactly what the label promised. That invisibility is the mechanism. That silence is the danger. A senior lying still in a dark room, heart rate slightly lower than it should be, blood pressure sitting at the bottom of its overnight range, QT interval stretched just a few milliseconds beyond normal, has no way of knowing any of it is happening. No sensation, no signal, nothing to report to a doctor in the morning because there is nothing to report. Just another night of sleep. Just another bottle of supplements doing what the label said they would do. The clock had already started, the amplifier was already in the stack, and most seniors taking this combination had no idea a 4th compound was about to make everything worse. Most seniors do not know this combination exists, and the ones who do are not sleeping as soundly as they think.